And hello, sports fans and fans of sport. I don't know whether that sounds shit or not, Hugh, but I'm just going to keep saying it. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing great, mate, and I think you should totally keep with it. A lot of catchphrases aren't that great, but when you say it enough, it just kind of, it blends in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. How's everything going? All right this week? You happy?
Yeah, mate. I had a top week. Thank you very much. Yeah, but the bodybuilding week has been had its challenges, and this was one of the hardest weeks I've had because I dropped right down in my calories. But I had about 4 days of feeling like a zombie, and then my body adjusted, and it was like right. And I've plateaued on that level now for like the last 4 days. So in a really good place, mate. How are things with you?
Well, it may be good to start with this because today on the show, we are, and actually, why don't we do the proper intro? So today on the show, we're going to be talking, Hugh, you wanted to introduce to me this Kneesovertoesguy, and I wanted to share with you some injury issues I'm having. We're also going to be talking the UFC fight between, oh, come on, Sean, you can get it
Come on,
right.
Sean, you can do it.
Reyes, Prochazka.
Yeah, I think you got it.
Prochazka? All right.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. And then we're going to be having just a brief chat. I don't want to give it too much oxygen, but Hugh, I want to get your take on Jake Paul challenging Nate Diaz and also some of Dana White's comments. So let's start the show.
I went back. I lost my eardrums from that, but I think I got a bit too
late. So I wanted to share. You mentioned, and I started watching this Kneesovertoesguy.
Yeah.
And so I guess could you give me a bit of an intro, because my impression, just from like the few short videos I've seen, is it's very much about strengthening sort of the core muscles, the linear core muscles, as far as helping build his athleticism and his joint strength. And he is somebody who I read had multiple knee surgeries, issues with ligaments, reconstruction, and he's turned himself into a high level athlete. I mean, what can you give me a bit of an intro? Somebody who knows about this a bit more than I do.
Yeah, well, I think you've done a very good job there. I'd only just be putting the frills around the edges, but yeah, largely bounced across him because it was knee injury related, and I've had ongoing knee injuries, and his marketing in particular stood out. And I think one of the things that I saw him was his athletic ability. So he's got his top off. This guy's in, by looks of it, Las Vegas. He's ripped. He's a bit like natural ripped, just in really great shape. Athletically,
kind of like me, just like a smaller version of me,
just like a smaller version of Sean.
Of course,
he's got these like tighty whitey kind of athletic shorts on, and his legs look quite muscular. The things he can do with his knees, his knee ability, as he calls it, is tremendous. So he could do a sissy squat, which is when you stood up and you just bend right down until your knees touch the floor. And then he can lean all the way down. So his back is lying whilst his heels are by his buttocks. And he just comes up with ease, I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
And what's the other one that's really impressive as well? Like he lunges with his knee really far over his toes, hence the name. And he's built up that gradually over the course of having some, by the sounds of it, quite devastating knee injuries, to the extent that his patella is, I think, completely manufactured now. It's not a real, real patella. They said they wouldn't be able to bend his knee. He'd never be able to run again. And he's dunking. And he's like, I mean, you look at his athletic ability. He increased his vertical jump from 19 inches to like 42.
40.
I think
there's 40. Yeah, 20 to
He believes, actually, anecdotally, that he's the only person to ever had a minus 20% vertical jump and to be able to train it to an over 40%.
Yeah.
And he's obsessed with just knee ability, and his sport is basketball, and he's trying to train and help people through his program, his online coaching program, how to get your knees back to strength.
I'm intrigued by this because this week I haven't, I wanted to save this for the live show. I've had an evolution, and part of it is my timing is a bit poor with weight loss. Because I had a really good first week, and this week I've sort of not bottomed out. I've leveled out. I went to play golf on Sunday, and I went outside, and I got to remember I'm not who I used to be. And I used to be that kind of person, the athleticism, just to go out and just swing a golf club, and I feel fine. And I went out first thing in the morning, straight out of bed. So I don't think people understand how much value you get out of just moving around, loosening your joints, just even walking around the house, just moving. And you know how I am as far as in mornings. And we had like an 8:30 tea time, and I was just up straight out to our like little golf mat, and I started to swing the golf club, and I felt something pulling my back. And I thought, shit. And it was really bad. And I was like, I'm going to try to soldier on. And actually, after the first few holes, it was fine. I went to bed that night, and I felt like a nerve pain down the side of my hip and leg, and I couldn't sleep that night. When I woke up, I did fall asleep eventually. I really was struggling. Like I was holding the wall, peeing, just trying to like not crumble over in pain. And my leg was going numb. And as I was walking around, my foot was getting more and more numb to where I couldn't feel it. And it turns out I have sciatica that I've given myself.
That was my guess. Yeah.
So and actually the good news is it's gone away quick, because the physio that I ended up speaking to said, just move. And I even spoke to them. I have a knee injury on my good knee on that side. And I think that's part of the reason why my back in that area threw up, because it's compensating for my knee.
Yeah.
And she said, just move, do as much as you can, stop. And I was taking buggies on the golf course. If you're from the States, taking a cart. And I walked 9 holes yesterday. My foot and knee feel better, but I really need to take some drastic measures, because now my good knee is bad right now, which is probably helping my bad knee out, because I'm starting to use some of the other muscles that I haven't been using. But because of this, I thought I need to learn about Kneesovertoesguy. I need to see what he's going on about.
Okay, so his program is online. It's, I believe, $50 US dollars a month. $49 and change. First month you get half price. So it's something to that effect. I started it, but then I started my bodybuilding program, which it crossed over totally. And I tried doing both, and it wasn't working. You end up doing a shit job of both in the end. So I've just paused, or actually I've cancelled the Knees Over Toes until I do this bodybuilding thing, and then I'll go back to it. But I'm still incorporating some of the very basic stuff that he shows. There are 3 levels to his training program, and he suggests you start and do 12 weeks of each one. The first one's called Zero. The Zero program involves anyone can do this. You don't need any equipment. You don't need anything for it. It's like zero. It's starting from zero, starting from whatever position you're in, and anyone can do that. You don't need any equipment to do this stuff. Then it goes to Dense, and then it goes to his other program is Standards. So then you're involving some equipment. Then you're involving more equipment and more kind of higher level athletic standards. And I believe he's got a 4th level, which he'll be doing at some stage, which is athleticism or something like that. You can see at the top there, right at the top. You've got to look Zero, Dense, Strength, and Standards. Those are his 3 kind of programs. But his YouTube channel, anyone that wants to do YouTube or do marketing in general needs to check this guy out, because he knows how to do it. He's so clever. His videos are usually very short. If you just let it play, maybe you'll get caught out. This is the other thing I was going to say. That's world class, mate.
That's why I put this Nordic, on. I watched this.
That's what I was like. A Nordic curl, like my professional footballer mate. I told him that he could do that. He was like, mate, there's like almost no one can do that. That is so impressive. The hamstring strength required to do
hamstring strength. Jesus, that scares me.
This is a sissy squat that he's doing now. That is hard to do. With bad knees, you don't want to be doing that. And he could just do that, with ease. So I was watching this guy saying, look at how good I am with my knees. You're like, God, you are good with knees. And he's like, my knees were devastated. And I had all these surgeries, and I said, I can't run. I can't bend my knees. I've now created a program. I had to do it all myself. I can show you how to do it for 50 quid a month. You do it online. You need no equipment. This is what I can now do. Are you interested? And you're like, fucking, I'm sold. Like, what a great sales pitch. And he does daily uploads on social media, and he goes into detail about what he's doing and why. And he's a great talker. He's very natural. He's a dad. He gets his wife involved. He gets his little I think it's a baby boy. He carries the baby boy sometimes. He's doing some of these things. Very entertaining, as well as adding immense value to something for me in particular I'm having issue with. So I've got nothing but respect for this guy. You should listen to him, Sean, for sure.
Do you think I should wait until I'm a bit lighter, or do you think it would be good to do it whilst I have a bit more timber on me?
What, the knee stuff?
Yeah.
I don't, there's next to no downside. We're starting now and trying to create health. So
Yeah.
What he does to start with, you'll have a warm up, which will basically involve walking backwards for 10 minutes. And I now walk backwards every single day.
Really?
Yeah, every single day. He's even got layers to it. So you start off walking backwards, then you can start pulling things backwards. Another thing I really like about him, which you'll laugh at, is that he'll give you no excuse as well. This is his sales pitch, because he's not there to flog a load of equipment. He's like, you don't need equipment. He's got this fancy equipment, but he says, you don't need that. Here are 10 ways that you don't need that equipment. And he'll do everything that you can do for free of charge. Like, or you can find around your house or other alternatives. So he makes it like there are no excuses. This is the easy, like you can do anything that I'm doing, but zero, you don't need equipment. But it's walking backwards. It'll be calf raises, different angled calf raises, a tibia raise, which is where you basically have your bum against the wall. I'm stood against the wall with my bum against it. I'm leaning slightly forward. I'm just lifting my toes up. So you're basically working your shin. And it's horrible. It hurts so much because we're not used to it. But that's the muscle that's used for deceleration. And he'll go into detail of why he does everything. But the program is basically set up so you work to a level of discomfort and then you stop it. And then it's stretching after that. Yeah. So you'll get to a point and everything is geared to, if you're 30 stone, you've got terrible knees, then he'll make the starting position really easy. So the linear progression is excellent. So he said, if you're struggling, do this. If this is too easy, do that. And then you've got everything in between. He talks you through. So you go at the level that you're comfortable with. And I would imagine probably you'd only be doing half of the program if you've got bad knees.
It makes sense that it sounds like, especially with, you don't really think about the hamstring as far as, I've thought about the ankle joint as being a support point for the knee, or maybe taking some of that work. And I was actually able, with no ligaments in my right knee, I've done a few 5Ks in the last 6 years, simply because I was doing, and we've spoken about this, 4-foot running, where I don't let my heel touch the ground. So I'm allowing my ankle, which is very strong, to absorb the weight of the knee joint. And I don't run fast, but I mean, it's still cardio. I'm still jogging. And the little things you were saying there, with regard to some of the calf exercises, that is going to take quite a bit of the pressure off of the joints. And it's going to, facilitate that whole stem, that whole unit to really share the load a bit more, which something that I think it's really interesting. Something I want to take a look at.
You've got the inside of you've got your legs there. The inside, the teardrop muscle of the knee, it's called the VMO. That is that's what you're going to be working on, because that gives the most support to the knee. So you're working on your VMO and your calf muscle on the ankle strength and shin strength, as well as hamstring strength. So you're doing everything basically. As a general rule of thumb, for any injury, if you have an elbow injury, you work upstream and downstream of the arm. So you would look around releasing tension either side of whatever your problem area is in the joint. And you'll tend to find that, again, it's very rudimentary stuff, but that's what any physio will do. They'll be having a look and doing exercises and stretching and mobility around the muscles that support the area that you're struggling with. He does everything I say everything, most things unilaterally. So it's all about working out, doing split squats with your right and then your left. So you're not using one to support. He doesn't think we should, when you're starting out, be doing squats double footed, because there's always one leg that takes up the weight. Yeah. I definitely had that.
I do too.
So I think there's a lot to benefit from it, and the stretching at the end is really good as well. So you do basically 3 days of your leg workout, then you have 2 days off on the weekend. Then on the Tuesday and Thursday, there's an optional upper body thing, which again we spoke about before, right? I think you'll love his upper body, and this drives me insane as someone that loves training. Every single person on the planet should be doing his upper body program, because it takes like no time at all, and it's just really basic kind of. I think it was like 3 sets of 10 push pull supersets. That's it. But you do it whatever you're capable of. So it's not like push-ups and or dips if you can't do that. Like, you'll do your progression of it, but you have to do push and pull. And he'll show you the way that he does it, full range of motion, which I really like as well. So that side of it you can take some benefit from as well.
That might be a good alternative, because I was given a physio sheet for post-surgery from the NHS.
Okay.
To help with my knee, and it's been challenging because I'm still not 100% convinced. They're saying I don't necessarily need surgery because it's not swollen and because I am able to do the things that I'm doing.
Because you're able to walk on it, Sean. That's the problem. If you were incapacitated, they'll put you through it. But I spoke to the
interested. Yeah, she said that I don't think it's surgery because of the things that I'm able to swing a golf club. Because I said to her, when I walk up and down stairs, I still can't always do it. However, when I finish a round of golf, I'm able to more. And she said that's because your muscles are activated more, whereas in the morning it's harder, they're not activated. Therefore, I don't necessarily think this is a surgery thing. She said, I think this is a rehab thing. But I'm not convinced.
No, and I would say that I totally disagree. To the extent that what they try to do is get you to a point where you're functioning and get you to work so you can earn money and drive a car and just do the basic rudimentary stuff. So do you need surgery for that? No, you don't. But is your knee at a point where rehab will bring it fully back? No, I would say it's probably unlikely. Like doing knees over toes stuff and the physio stuff will just make it better to a certain degree. And I'm in the same point. My knee will I'm not convinced it will ever get to like kind of full strength again without me doing something like the knees over toes. Probably working with him on it. Like so. The downside with it is that they do virtual coaching on it, and they only do the video. You have to do video footage of your last 3 reps on each exercise that you do. He doesn't want to, if he's done 25 reps, he just wants to see your last 3 reps filmed, and then someone will then provide you feedback on that. Right. The difficulty is with someone like you, if you've got more of a, a problem knee, like I've said, mine was starting to dislocate slightly. That's one of my issues with it. And I did explain that to them, and they said, I think you're going to be okay. And I was like, I'm not sure it is okay. I don't think I should be keeping dislocating it. So I kind of worked out something in between which minimized the dislocation, so it wasn't really doing it, although it did it now and again. But back to my point on this lady, this physio, sorry. I think that is the downside, because I've had doctors tell me that they won't put you in unless they're not trying to get Sean back to a well-functioned 40-year-old man. They're just trying to stop the worst thing from happening. So you may need surgery, but you may have to pay for it.
I mean, to be fair, she probably saw my file and said, he's fat as fuck. Let's just get him on his feet. And that's probably more along the lines of he's not an athlete and we don't want to put resource in him unless he's having trouble. So if I were to go back to him and say, I can't do the things I need to do to lose weight, then I think that's a different path down the NHS, because there's other
mental health, work issue. If you had an active job, like, that would be a different thing. But put it this way, I won't put his name. My friend is teaches sports at primary school level. So it's not like secondary school level, but he is the head of PE for the school, and they're not putting him through. He's had an ongoing knee issue since he damaged his knee when he was a teenager, and it's now got to the point where it kind of locks out every now and again. Yeah. They weren't willing to put him through surgery either, although they did explain the problem, and it's because he can get by. And he said that it was affecting his work, doing his job, and his was on the cusp because of that. If he had more of a standard job, there's no way they would have put him through it. But
that's interesting nonetheless. It will be something I'm going to look at that as the alternative to the because I think the physio sheet I got is more of a blunt sort of solution. I don't think it's nuanced to what it was a post-surgery sheet, so I might be more inclined to check out this knees over toes instead of continuing with the physio.
See, even if you take a couple of things from it, the thing is, the knees over toes guy has been through it. Like, so I'd say his knee knowledge and now his current knee abilities from where he was and where he is now will be far superior of any NHS physiotherapist, I believe. There may be knee surgeons that know more than him, but he's actually built it anecdotally, and he's got that. So there's probably a lot that he could pass over.
Well, thank you for that, Hugo. I know it was something we wanted to talk about, and I thought this would be a good week because I'm a bit banged up, and the timing sounds like it's ideal. So something maybe we need to come back to in a bit more detail as the weeks are ongoing. So let's move on to the next piece. So I wanted to talk about Reyes Prochazka. It happened yesterday. I watched the fight this morning, and
What do you
it's the
think?
first time I've seen Prochazka fight. And man, I think I was watching him pretty much picking apart Reyes comfortably. And I thought this would be an interesting fight with him and Blachowicz. Ultimately, that was what was going around in my head. I wanted to see this matchup because I could see him posing all sorts of problems for Blachowicz. It's not quite to the degree that Adesanya. It's almost like a larger Adesanya with how unpredictable and how he moves. It kind of reminds me of Masvidal a bit with how he moves around. I don't know how accurate you would think that is, but it's a very, very sort of all over the place style, very in and out. But man, it was an impressive fight.
I wouldn't say it's inaccurate. I think that would be unfair on both Masvidal and Adesanya. First, Adesanya technically would I think he would probably rip that guy apart. I think with Masvidal, again, technically those two are just on a different level. This Prochazka has strength and explosive nature and unpredictability. He'd be more like, I don't know, you'd look at someone like what's his name? God, blanked on his name now. Yoel Romero or something like just someone that's a bit kooky, crazy on his feet. That's just explosive. You've got to watch yourself around him. He's not someone that's going like. So technically, I think he could really get found out with someone. So I think Blachowicz could knock him out because he walks around with his hands down, which I don't like to see, and I don't think he's. I don't like to see it, and there's only a few guys that can do it and get away with it, like Anderson Silva. You've got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, people with their hands down because they're so fast and they're used to it and they're bouncing on their feet. They can react very quickly. I don't think he's that fast. I mean, we'll see. But Reyes, he went through him. He just don't. I don't know if he hurt him early. I don't know if Reyes came out with an injury or something, but he just ran through Reyes. And Reyes, again, in my opinion, a few fights ago, beat John Jones, like arguably the greatest of all time. So Reyes has really had a fall from grace after losing to Jones.
Yeah, when I compare him, I'm just saying similarities in sort of that unpredictable movement and some of the way he throws punches and the angles he comes at.
Very awkward.
But that's what when I watch Adesanya or I watch Masvidal, those are the first two that came to mind with more their punching, the unpredictability and the angles that they're coming in. I don't think at all that that's the same class of fighter. But I was looking at his fights, and his last loss was in I don't know what Risen is
Ryzen,
yeah. Sorry, but he has absolutely plowed through his last I think 10 fights over the last 2 years. And the reason I thought it was so I agree with you because I had two thoughts when I thought about him, taking on Blachowicz. I thought Blachowicz, if I were to pick a fighter that would give him problems, then Adesanya clearly gave him problems. It's somebody that can move quite quickly but has power, and he represents to me a much heavier, more powerful version of Adesanya to a degree, like not to the same skill.
I'd say he's more powerful. I'd say he's more powerful for sure. The guy that is one thing he has in abundance.
And the reason I find it a compelling fight isn't because I think he can necessarily beat him, but I think there's an interesting storyline because he did leave himself open to quite a few shots. Now, I was reading a bit about fighters who do this, and there's some people that believe if you're keeping your hands down, you can see the punch coming, and it leaves you a bit more open to counters. It's almost like he wants to bait in that punch so he can open up, similar to how Usman, had his knockout punch. He was able to move the hands and throw the straight right. And this guy very much is trying to bait a punch so that he can get a big counter in. And it's very unpredictable, the angles he's coming at him. And I could just see either Jan knocking him out, but I could also see somebody like him who's quick and pressing and willing to throw these punches sort of out of nowhere. I think it would be interesting because I think Blachowicz, one area that I think he is a bit weak is when you have a faster fighter who's bigger. I think you could get enough, if you can avoid being knocked out, I think you could beat Blachowicz over the course of a fight. If you can go the distance, I think you can score more than him.
From a technical stand-up point, I would agree with you. Blachowicz has just got tighter technical skills than this guy standing up, so I think it makes for a really good fight because I've not seen Blachowicz in some time anyway. I know that he did in a different weight class, but I've not seen him in trouble, like had that kind of pressure put on him. He's been on a tear since he knocked out Luke Rockhold. So I think having someone that's very kind of quirky, immensely powerful, as Prochazka he's going to cause issues for anyone in that weight class. Like he's a unit. He's explosive and powerful and unpredictable. So got some issues there. Wasn't overly convinced of him on the floor. He didn't look terrible, but again, I'm not sure of how much of his game what he's like on when his back's on the mat. That's another thing as well. But
Reyes isn't bad on the mat though, and he was able. He was. I thought he did well to defend the takedowns against Reyes, and he was on his back a few times.
Yeah, I don't. I'm going to quickly check because I'm not sure that Reyes is renowned for anything on his back. I think he's more.
I thought he had a wrestling background.
Let's have a little look. No, you could be right actually.
But while you're looking that up, so because I felt like Adesanya represented somebody who did trouble Blachowicz, and it's that quick sort of, hit and step back, those quick sort of, punches and kicks and those weird awkward combinations. That's the kind of fighter that I think would be, a tough matchup for Blachowicz as opposed to just a straight boxer. I'd say anybody who's someone like Reyes, I would say Blachowicz, I would expect him to beat again. But I would say I'd be really interested to see this fight, watching this guy, because I think he's a compelling matchup with Blachowicz.
I'm just looking at Reyes' kind of career. So he kind of came in 2014 into the King of the Cage. UFC first one was 2017, and he went on a tear. He's knocked out Jared Cannonier, Ovin St. Preux, OSP as he's known as, Volkan Ozdemir. Again, he fought for a title fight. Chris Weidman, he was an ex-title holder, and then he lost to John Jones. So this guy was on a tear all the way up to that point, knocking people out. He's got an NFL background here, Sean, by the looks of it. Or no, so like, was it NFL or was it football? He ultimately went undrafted in the 2013
Canadian
NFL draft, so in the Canadian Football League. So it looks like he then trained MMA. So I don't think he does have a wrestling background, but the guy is obviously a physical specimen, which you can see, especially against John Jones. You could see he could kind of hold his own. He was like pushing John Jones off him. But no, I don't think he's technically that great on the floor is what I'm in MMA standards from what I'm seeing there. He's more of a kickboxer. But back to your point, Sean, because when I was reading, I did switch off for a minute. I'm going to just check in with you. What was your question? What was your point on that?
No, I think I was just making the point that I just think that because wrestling isn't so much something that, Blachowicz is I think capable on the ground, but he's very much, he wants to knock people out. And I think someone like him who's going to be sort of, landing his blows and, taking these quick step back, it's going to be hard for, I think it's hard for, if he can avoid a knockout punch, I think it's going to be hard for Blachowicz to really, land a blow on him. Because when I was watching him fight Reyes, a lot of the shots he was landing, because there's so much movement in the way, Prochazka fights, it's really hard to get a square punch on him. And I don't think Reyes, he tagged him a few times, but he's constantly moving back, moving sideways, in and out. I could see that really troubling Blachowicz.
I'm not sure. I think, my money would still be on Jan. I think he'd beat him. I do agree with, he's very awkward. So this Prochazka he's a very awkward cat, but I do see him getting caught as well. I'm not sure. I mean, this is one of those things that we might have to put some money on the line if they do face off, because I think this is where they're going to probably push it. I didn't see any of the post-fight analysis, so I don't know where the
I didn't know. They just saw the fight.
I think naturally, if you've got a title contention, Reyes against Blachowicz, Reyes loses, and now he loses to someone else, he's going to be Prochazka is going to be in a really good position to fight for the title, if not go in for a contender fight next. So I don't know if you watch any of his interviews, guys. He's a really interesting bloke. He's a bit of a kooky guy.
Yeah, I didn't. I like I said, I haven't watched any of the post fight. I think I saw about 10 seconds of one interview and just couldn't. Something happened, distracted me on that. But I'm interested to learn a bit more about this guy. And like I said, to me, anybody who's close to, I felt Adesanya troubled Blachowicz, and I would be right now, if you were to ask me to pick between the two, I wouldn't automatically say Blachowicz necessarily. I wouldn't be able to, I'm not comfortable to say that. I'm sort of right down the middle if I had to pick a fight between those two after watching that fight.
Look, Prochazka can knock anyone out in that division. I think you've got to be really careful. That's why, again, this is why John Jones is so amazing. He's never been, I don't think he's been knocked down once or never. So he doesn't get caught. And you see everyone that's going up against him that gives him a good fight has lost fights and been dominated by someone. Reyes, I think, beat him. And it's the only man I've seen. The guy before that, Santos, that was very close. That was very close indeed. Yeah. And he got injured. And then you've got Gustafsson. And you've got, so these guys are cream of the crop stuff. And Prochazka has just beaten someone that's right at the top of the food chain. So it's these guys, if they catch you, you're in trouble.
Yeah. And I think that's why what made me pay attention was the ease with which he was able to dismantle Reyes. And if you look at Reyes's fights and his knockouts, they're only a couple rounds. He's usually the one that before
he was running through people. Mate, have you watched the John Jones fight with Reyes?
No, I need to watch the John Jones Reyes fight.
I reckon it's such an awesome fight, and Reyes went for him. Like for the first 3 rounds, he just put it on John Jones, and there's not many people that do that. Put pressure on him, and that's what I like about Prochazka. He was out for Reyes. So I'd like to see him go after Jan Blachowicz. He could go in trouble if he chases him. I think he could be in a bit of trouble if he does, because you can get picked apart if you chase someone down. But I really respect that. When I love the pressure that he was able to put it on him. I actually think that, I don't know if you heard in the commentary, but they're talking about his nose. It got busted up from Jan.
Reyes.
And I think he got hurt quite early on. That's my take. Anecdotal guessing. I think you could see him wince earlier, and he didn't want to get hit. You could kind of see that. Not that anyone does want to get hit, but as a fighter, you could see him covering up more. And I think he kind of probably re-injured his nose, and that's going to be an ongoing issue now.
Yeah. Well, we will see if that does. I'll be curious to see where that goes. I haven't seen any of the post-fight. I'm going to go back and watch it a bit more closely, because there will be a point where we're going to have to put our money where our mouth is on that. We'll see where we go with that.
I just want to make a quick point here, mate, because it looks like the Sandhagen Dillashaw is next week, and it's saying now that there's a different main event. So I don't know if you've heard, but I don't know if TJ Dillashaw's pulled out or something. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't heard anything about that.
They're due to fight next week, 8th of May, isn't it? Yeah. That's supposed to be the headliner, but for some reason it's not showing up on Google. So I don't know if something's happened there, but that's going to be a fascinating fight next week, mate. So if that goes ahead, which I have a feeling it may have been cancelled, but one to watch. Yeah, TJ Dillashaw's pulled out. Ah, bugger. That is a shit, because that would have been amazing. Yeah, TJ Dillashaw and Diego Sanchez pull out. Oh, mate, that's so, because he received a cut whilst drilling. Damn it.
So okay. So I guess we'll see what happens. So they're going to have to fill the void with 2 people fairly last minute then.
They've got it. They've got someone in there that, doesn't look too, bless them, but it just doesn't, I'm not too interested. Park Yun-Yong versus Tafon Niwuki. I don't know either of those fighters, but so, I think it'll be the week after that then, mate. You've got Sunday the 16th. So we're looking now in just over 2 weeks' time. Is going to be
there, isn't it?
Yeah. And then Nate Diaz is fighting on the card, and Tony Ferguson.
Great segue, mate. That's a great segue. So I wanted to bring this up with you because I've as anybody who's watched us knows that I'm still sort of cutting my teeth in in the UFC, and Jake Paul called out Nate Diaz, and it's one of those things I'm begrudgingly talking about it, but it's interesting enough that I can't not talk about it because I want you to
I know what you mean. Yeah.
And I started to look at clips of Nate Diaz, and because I was curious to see, okay, have we found somebody who will just end this business with Jake Paul? And the first thing I heard was Chael Sonnen saying, and it was an interesting way he put it. He's like, look, Nate Diaz, if you've got to fight with Nate Diaz, you're in for a tough day. You are in for a tough day. And I started to watch him fight, and my first thought was, like just the first 10 seconds. So I'm just sharing with you my thought. I don't believe this, but when I just thought, man, he doesn't look like he's very strong, or he doesn't look like he's very, his punching isn't very powerful. It just looked really awkward. And I thought, yeah, maybe Jake Paul could give him a match. But the more I started watching him, fucking hell, this guy is a bruiser.
And you don't want to mess with that. You don't want to mess with the Diaz brothers. You got his older brother Nick, and then Nate, and they are legends in the sport. The Diaz brothers are like street kids. They have a cult following. They are main events whenever they fight, and they'll fight anyone, anytime, anywhere. Then those guys bring their crew, and you don't fuck around with those boys. What they're both renowned for is having very high levels of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on their back. They submit people, and very high levels of boxing. And I'm gonna emphasize that point. Not particularly kickboxing. It is mainly boxing, and their boxing is at a very high level. So the pressure they put people on, those guys also compete in triathlon on the side. So these guys are mega fit. They're like zombies. So neither of them really gets dropped. I know Connor dropped Nate. That's a rarity. Like, you don't really see these guys getting knocked out. But they never stop. When you see them to start, they're slow starters as well. Like, they're not the most powerful. They're not the most explosive. And even physically, they don't look anything special. But they got this mean mugging face. They're always like, they're in your face, and they put pressure on you, and they don't stop. And
he looks like he's been punched. I mean,
he's been punched a lot. Those guys, they know war. So, yeah, like he's not someone you want to be messing around with. Like, they're serious dudes, and I would love to see that fight just for Nate to piece him up. But
why, when I watched him initially, because when I watched I forget which fight it was, but the fights that I did watch, it always seemed like it started off like, well, he's not gonna, and this is me knowing nothing about Nate Diaz, it looked like, yeah, he's not gonna win this fight.
Who was it against? Can you remember?
I can't. I have to go back into my history. It was. Let me see if I can find it here.
Yeah, how about
Nate Diaz? It wasn't Masvidal.
It wasn't Masvidal.
I don't think it was. I think I did watch Masvidal, the Nate Diaz Masvidal fight. Did he win that fight?
No, he lost. But that was a doctor's stoppage though, because of a cut. But he was getting pieced up by Masvidal.
Because the fights that I have seen, I'm sorry, I'm not going to remember which one it was. I was just sort of flipping through YouTube, watching, as much content as I could, and it was, what it was the fight. What caught me on it was somebody, because I think the Masvidal fight I definitely watched, because he did the fake. I don't know if it happened after the Askren fight, because he ran and then faked to run at him, and Nate Diaz ran off for a second and came back in. So it made him flinch early on in the fight. And when I watched the rest of that fight, and I can't remember who it was, Nate Diaz, it looked kind of like a modern day Rocky. If I were to find somebody that was fighting like Rocky Balboa in the films, it was Nate Diaz. It was almost like, I'm going to let you hit me and just get as close as I can and be awkward and just wait until you're tired. And then I'm going to be able to outlast you, and I'm going to just grind you into a hideous win. And that was sort of what I saw the few fights that I did see.
So from a stamina, strength of will point of view, you're spot on. From a technical standpoint, I would say it would be unfair on Diaz, because they're both technically on their feet. They're excellent. And
well, can I ask about that really quick? Not to, because this is what I wanted to ask you on that point, because and I didn't quite get to it because I was stammering like an idiot. But when I watched the fight, why would I watch him in the first? And I agree with you. I think he's incredibly proficient as a puncher. But why would I watch him as sort of a neophyte with this whole thing and think he's not very good as a boxer? My first, let's say, few minutes of watching, he looks really inefficient with his punching. Why would I think that? What is it about his style?
It's death by 1,000 cuts. Is their style. They kind of Nick, his older brother, again, like those. Just Google those two and watch any YouTube. Those guys are amazing.
Oh yeah,
they're so entertaining as well, and they had this like
very tight.
this kind of like pitter patter kind of style where they won't knock you out, but they just don't stop. Their tempo doesn't slow down. They maintain, and they're in your face, and they kind of it's like a claustrophobic nature. They're on you, pitter patter, like. And if the fight ever goes to the ground, you're going to be in a bit of trouble. I don't think ever really tend to drag fights down to the ground, but they are very capable of submitting. So they're not, like I said, they're not the fastest on their feet. They're not going to be the most explosive knockout power, but that technicality, the stamina, they never slow down, and they're constantly in your face applying pressure. That, like what we saw with Reyes last night with Prochazka, like he just put that pressure on. So think of someone just not to that extent, but just applying that pressure and never stopping. It's that kind of Khabib. I'm in your face, and I'm not going anywhere. And a lot of people run away from them because they don't tend to take many back steps. So if you watch the first Conor versus Nate Diaz fight, Nate Diaz came in late, and I was like, oh, this is a dangerous fight for Conor. And Nate looked out of his depth in the first round, in the first fight. Conor was piecing him up, but Conor was really going full guns. In the second round, Nate was, I think, cut, or he was hurt. Like you could see his face was getting, he was like, oh my God, this is going to be a walkover. Then Nate Diaz in the second round just starts landing a few punches, and then the crowd start to turn, and you can feel the momentum going back the other way. He's like that, mate. Just like they're back up against the wall. So for some context, Nate Diaz does sparring with like heavyweight, whatever his weight is, like middleweight or whatever the equivalent is, world champions. Like he spars with boxing champions or boxing caliber, champion caliber boxers. So he's someone that he knows what he's doing in there.
He's I think he would give 20. How heavy is he? Let me just see if we can find him.
He fights in 170, and he doesn't look like he carries masses over that. But he's quite a tall guy. I think he's like 6'1", maybe 6'1". So he's going to be marginally shorter than Jake Paul. It says here he's 6 foot exactly. His weight here, they say, is like 170, but he won't be walking around at that.
No.
He's probably around 190, probably 190, 200, probably naturally, as a guess.
So to me, do you think that, so let's say this bullshit fight were to happen. Do you think the 10-ounce gloves would mitigate any of Nate Diaz's ability to, let's say, beat a Jake Paul?
I'll tell you what, let's turn this around. If Jake Paul if this fight were to go ahead, which it won't, by the way, I don't think this is.
Well, he's under contract with the MMA, and Dana White is.
He's not going to let him out. Why the hell would he? Because he's still such a draw. So he's not going to do that. Ben Askren was out. He's never going to fight again, and that's a totally different situation. If it were to happen, which it won't, and if he were to beat Nate Diaz, he's got people's attention. Put it that way. I wouldn't see that happening, but
because I look at it, because he's got Tyron Woodley if he wants to fight. Because Dana White was saying, I saw an interview clip of him saying, "Why the fuck aren't you fighting a boxer? You're a boxer. Find a boxer. Stop messing with these UFC guys."
It's a really good point. Yeah.
Why are you wasting your time on this? Go earn. Good on you. Stop. And he was, I think Dana White's getting close to the point where he's going to start pressing charges, put lawsuits, so to speak, not pressing charges. He's going to be suing Jake Paul because it is, yeah, that's what it is. I mean, these guys are under contract, and I as sort of a not a labor, somebody who's not familiar, he could fight Tyron Woodley right now. I think he's afraid to fight Tyron Woodley, and I wonder if they look at Nate Diaz's unconventional style and smaller frame as somebody that's a bit more ripe for the picking. Not correctly, it sounds like, but they're not. They could clearly be taking on Tyron Woodley, who's saying, "Fight me. I'm ready for a payday, and I'll knock you out."
So look, Ben Askren had zero knockout power. Nate Diaz, I wouldn't say has zero knockout, but he's not renowned for knocking people out. Like, he's done head kicks and stuff, but he will just overwhelm you. So I'd say it's a clever one because he's got a big following, and from a boxing only perspective, the chances are he may not get knocked out by Nate Diaz. Although, again, I would not be messing, even calling him out. If Nate sees him on the street, there's going to be confrontation, and without a doubt,
love that.
These guys don't mess around. Like, if he sees him, there will be something will happen. Don't think that Nate's just going to walk away. If he catches him and he's called him out, Nate, and he'll be with his crew, and I can imagine things kicking off.
Yeah, this is what I would like to see, and this didn't. Askren is like, he just didn't give a shit really at the end of the day, and that made him an imposing person to troll because he doesn't care. And Jake Paul lives in this world of children, in this sort of like
It's a good little insight. That's a world of
no, but
children,
it is. He is. It's like when he comes into this UFC world. I mean, there's people that respect the business, but he's a child among men. And you know,
Yes.
when he goes to troll a Nate Diaz, you are now properly poking a bear. And
You
I
don't
would
want me
be
doing
interested
that.
to see that. Now, I don't want, on the converse side, I want Dana White to stick to his guns and not kowtow to Jake Paul. I don't think anybody should. And that's why I'd be right now would love to see him take up Tyron Woodley. And I think it's an interesting piece that he's kind of ignoring that opportunity. He's absolutely ignoring that opportunity because I think he is trying to find somebody that he can perceivably have an opportunity to knock out. I think he won't be knocked out by Nate Diaz, and I think Jake Paul is strong enough to potentially catch Nate Diaz and knock him down and build some fake respect in, pulling Nate Diaz into a venue with 10-ounce gloves. Whereas Tyron Woodley, I could see him knocking out Jake Paul.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Tyron will be a different proposition. The thing that bugs me a little bit about it, this is in the fight game, you don't call out anyone that's smaller than you. So you like Adesanya couldn't call out Blachowicz, but Blachowicz, shouldn't be saying Adesanya's this and that. You don't tend to pick on the smaller guy. It's just like something that's done. If you're going to be a big man, then you call out a bigger, like a champion, someone with like big. So Jake Paul, he's bigger than everyone. He's bigger than Nate Diaz as well. I just seen he's 6'1". Weight wise, he's going to carry more weight than him as well. So
he's a big.
It's
dude.
like he's not a small guy. Like whatever you say about him, and that's the annoying thing. He's calling people like he put it this way: he wouldn't be a welterweight unless he cut tremendous amounts of weight. So Tyron Woodley, I mean, I think he's like 5'9" or 5'8" or something. So again, all these people that are kind of Tyron would cause him a lot of issues. Tyron's 5'9", but fights in the same weight class as Ben Askren did and Nate Diaz. So he's picking on. I say he's not picking on. He's a fighter, but he's calling out in a boxing term smaller guys. So like, be interested to see him actually call out someone that is just on the same size as him. Now Nate Diaz will be an inch shorter, but he's going to be carrying less muscle mass. So it's still a smaller guy, but Nate would give him one hell of a fight. But
I think a shorter fighter would be shorter, bigger guy like a Tyron Woodley would be problematic because Jake Paul is not going to be the most efficient jabber. He's not going to be the most efficient mover as a boxer. And somebody who's going to get inside and start landing punches. I mean, the second Askren, the one moment Askren actually landed a punch, he was moving forward and he was getting within that jab. And I just don't think Jake Paul, I think he needs to fight somebody who's tall, somebody who's a bit awkward, somebody who's not going to knock him out. And I think Tyron Woodley represents the exact opposite of that. And I'm curious to see where it goes begrudgingly because I want to see someone end this show. I want to see this whole thing ended.
That's what I'd quite like to see. It won't happen with Nate because he's under contract and he's too much of an asset. But that kind of fight would be very telling because I think we're all wanting to watch him get knocked out and they all get beaten up at the very least. And I think the shenanigans leading up to the fight would be very interesting. But I just want to make a very small segue that Nick Diaz as well. If you do a search on him, he is looking in tremendous shape online right now, and they are touting that he's going to be coming back, which will be fascinating. Nick, his older brother, he's been on the sideline, Sean, for 6 years through like contract disputes and money and all this like other crap that's going on. People are actually quite pissed off at the UFC that they've not kind of, why they haven't got him back, in the limelight because we all want to see him. So his last fight was against Silva in 2015. And Anderson Silva was like one of the greatest fighters of all time. At that level, he was in contention of being the GOAT. Nick Diaz he was like, come on. Like he was like calling out this guy, Anderson Silva, is like Adesanya now, right? So you think of like an Adesanya, he's walking in going, come on, bitch. What? Like he's calling him out. And at one point, he lay on the floor with his back to him. He just lay down on the ground, like showing his ass, like, come on, come and do something about it. This guy, and he just walks him down. So that's the last chance we've seen him. And I'd love to see the Diaz bros back because they're just, it's just wholesome. It's like in any sport that you like, American football, or you like, say, football or basketball. you can't help but respect and be drawn to those teams that's just super gritty, that
Yeah.
love fighting, that drag the other people down. And that's what the Diaz brothers do. They're very good at what they do. They make a show of it, and there's something so raw and authentic about them. They don't give a shit about the press stuff. You know, they just say what they want to say. They drop F-bombs and all that type of stuff. They, you know, smoking weed and everything. So yeah, I just want to see them both back in the ring as soon as.
And we have a few more minutes. I just thought about this. I heard about this, and I just thought it'd be worth bringing up whilst we had a bit of time left. Did you see this? Conor hints at picking up weight. I don't know enough about this. I would think that would be a mistake for Conor.
Yeah,
but you know, I'm not saying if anybody were to, you know, it's not I take it seriously. I don't think Conor would embarrass himself or he's a smart guy. He's not going to put himself in a position that he can embarrass himself. Could he get himself up to weight and even give Usman a challenge if that were ever to come to fruition?
So the answer to your first question is yes. And the second one, I would say no. So he fought Nate Diaz at 70. So he went up. Because Nate Diaz came in late, it was, again, a couple of weeks' notice. He didn't have a lot of time to train for it. Conor decided to meet him at 170 rather than make Nate cut weight at that short.
I remember this.
I
remember reading about this.
So then he lost at 170. Nate choked him out. Nate, basically, he gassed out against Nate and he started to suffer. Nate was landing it on him and he went to the ground and Nate then dominated him and choked him out. And then that's when, I just got to say it, because when Joe was like, oh my God, you shocked the world. And he went, I'm not surprised. He goes, I wasn't surprised, motherfuckers. And like, that's what he's renowned for, that statement. So he fought at 170 and then he wanted the rematch at 170. So he's fought now a couple of times at 170. And I don't think he cuts weight to get there. I think it's more naturally around there. Usman is like a 200-pound plus man and he's fucking ripped as well. So
yeah.
That means that he can get rid of more water and drain, so he can lose more weight effectively. He'll be dealing with a different animal. So why would Conor do that? It's because for legacy, because no other man has gone and fought in 3 weight classes and become world champion. He's calling out the world champion at 170, so he would be the 145, 155, and 170 title holder. No one's ever done that. No one actually now has fought to achieve that either. There was some talk of maybe George St. Pierre coming to do that, but that hasn't been the case.
Yeah.
So, but so he's got if he were to knock out Usman, which I'd say is very unlikely, but if he were, then he would just be again back to the number 1 spot, the pinnacle of the UFC. And if he loses, well, I've lost to a bigger man who's a monster, so I don't care. And fair play, Conor is willing to put that out there. It's something you don't want to be calling out, to be honest.
I can't help, but Conor McGregor is kind of like what I would say to a degree is Tyson Fury to me in boxing in the UFC, where I shouldn't like Conor McGregor, but I do, and I agree. I fucking respect him making this statement, having the balls. Because Usman is a scary dude, and I don't see any world where Usman doesn't pick apart Conor McGregor. I see Conor McGregor probably having a good round, maybe 2, but Usman comfortably dispatching Conor McGregor. And man, fair play to him for suggesting it. And I could see Usman taking that. That would be a big money fight.
It would be. So Colby's going to be the next one. Dana's already said that, and I think once he says it, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I don't see it happening.
Conor would need
fights.
to. Yeah. Again, he's got Poirier to to.
Oh God, yeah, he's got his own shit to work. I would see this as a future thing. I would see this as like if it happens, it's because Conor's gotten his shit back together, won a few fights, and then he would challenge Usman. I could see Usman, his personality saying, "Yeah, bring it. I'll fight anybody."
I think I've
already laughed at these guys. Yeah, free money.
Because if he dispatches Kobe, let's say then Conor does manage to beat Poirier. Okay, so he wins the trilogy fight. Then it should really be done. Then Conor's 1-2-1. They normally move on. They don't tend to have 4 fights with people. You'll then be looking at Conor taking on the winner of Chandler versus Oliveira, and probably the loser, then maybe Poirier in this case, taking on whoever lost in that fight. So I don't see this one happening right now. Then if Conor lost to Poirier,
not happening.
He's in a really weak position to then have a title shot in the weight class above against someone that he's lost to twice in the weight class below. I just don't see that happening. And if it were to happen, I think Usman would. And if I were Usman, I'd grab a hold of him real early, and it would be a long night. It will be 5 rounds of Conor being smashed on the floor, I think.
Yeah, I just don't see it being right now.
You wouldn't go 5 rounds.
Even if Conor, let's say, comfortably beats, and I could see, I would be even tempted to pick Conor against Poirier the second go around. But even if, let's say, he does beat Poirier, I don't see any world where I would pick him over Usman at all.
Currently, I have to disagree. Yeah, I'm on board with you, mate.
Yeah. Well, Hugo, good time as always this week. If you are still here watching, please do subscribe. We want to get some more people in joining the conversation. We have next week, so we need to decide what fights are coming up next week. And I guess we'll decide what the conversation is. But if you want to put a comment down in the comment section, and raise any points, anything you want us to bring up, we will discuss. I'm having trouble with my words right now, so either I'm having a stroke or but anyway, Hugh, thanks again this week. Look forward to catching up with you next week.
Yeah, you too, buddy. I think next week, just as a preface for anyone, we'll probably talk about the big UFC card that's coming up the following week. We'll probably preview and go through that, and then any sport headlines which are in the media.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where it goes. Keep an eye out. And to everybody, thanks again for joining, and have a good week. Take care.
See you guys.